We try.
This will have to be the last question since we've now run out of our time.
Good evening. My name is Pratana Phongpivat. I'm
From?
From Thailand,
Yeah.
currently a PhD student at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy. And I was impressed by
Fletcher
your...
School. You're
Yeah.
not in Harvard.
They take courses here. We're very closely related.
Well, I did. I was impressed by your speech that how much you have shaped Singapore to be one of the leading world countries. And well, you, however, did not really touch upon some problems in Singapore. And my question is, how would you address some problems like the underpopulation and the lack of working class? Or how do you concern about the encouragement of the government to try to encourage more birth rate and the unbalance of ratio that you try to keep?
I didn't catch the last few.
Unbalance of the racial ratio.
The racial imbalance that is going to arise from the encouragement of government to try to increase birth rate in some of the area or some of the race.
This is a very serious problem. I'm not sure that the incentives are going to work. Our birth rates, fertility rates have gone down from the 1970s, where we were about 2.8, 2.9 average per woman. Now it's about 1.5. And for the educated woman, it's 1.4. For the uneducated, it's about 1.6, 1.7. The Malays are just replacing themselves, 2.1, 2.2. The Indians are not replacing themselves. They are also around 1.8, 1.9. So all these concessions will produce a minor spurt, and then it'll tail off. We did that the last time in 1985. It moved upwards and it tailed off. The problem is a very difficult one to solve. It's got to do with changing lifestyles and changing values and a self-centered way of life. Why do I want children? It hampers my career development. I want to see the world. I want both incomes to enable us to fulfill our lives. And what's the profit in 2 children? Well, 1 may be good enough, and we can concentrate everything on 1. They're also marrying later, having trouble having children, and I'm not sure we can reverse it because it's a worldwide trend. The French have been partially successful. It's got nothing to do with the racial imbalance. The Muslims are slightly above average, 2.2, 2.3, but they're not multiplying it by all that number because they are also trapped in this desire for higher quality of life, travel, more of the comforts of wealth and the consumer society. Fortunately, we are a small population, so we are selectively encouraging immigration from other parts of the world, and not just from Asia. We recruit actively from all the universities in the world. Those who've come are mostly from Asia, but there are many who are from Europe, and they have also come to do work here. Of our population of 4 million, 3 million are Singaporeans, 1 million are foreigners. You might find this difficult to believe, but we have an economy that requires workers. 1 million are foreigners. Of them, about 800 to 900,000. 800,000 are unskilled and semi-skilled. 100,000 are in the white-collar class, and 100,000 are managers and professionals and top executives. Of course, like all countries, we hope to draw in from the upper brackets. Because if we allow those from the lower brackets to come in, we have 1 billion Indians and 3 billion Chinese. So 4 million Singaporeans will be swamped. So we have to be a little careful. We have created this oasis, and oasis can be stifled. So let's make sure that the spring water is flowing, grass remains green, and don't have too many goats eating up the grass.
Well,
May I try?
Unity in the core group of leaders ensured that we sent clear signals to our people and avoided confusion that would have arisen if the team had bickered and split. Leaders must have that sense of being trustees, that they are only temporarily in charge of the destinies of their people, and that their duty is not only to discharge this trust, but also to pass it on to equally trustworthy and competent hands. So luxurious living while our people were left in poverty and backwardness was out. We ensured complete accountability and open separateness between personal assets and public funds. Corruption, which has been a cancer in many societies, had to be eradicated and constantly kept down. A government voted into office needs an efficient, honest administration, staffed by officers recruited completely on merit by a politically neutral body. We had an impartial, capable public service commission with a chairman and members who were shrewd at assessing character. Promotions and rewards of scholarships must be made to the best candidates, and they have to share the nation-building philosophy and the development goals of the political leaders. They must also be adequately paid so that temptations would not be too difficult to resist. Once a political system has been corrupted, right from the top, from the very top to the lowest rungs of the bureaucracy, the problem is almost impossible to solve without a revolution. The cleansing and disinfecting has to start from the top and go downwards in a thorough and systematic way. It was a long and laborious process that can be carried out only by a very strong group of leaders with the courage and the moral authority derived from unquestioned integrity. We just managed it and stopped it before it got out of control. Next, we decided that the people should be stakeholders. Soon after separation, I resolved to enable every household to own their own home. If you're going to get the people to take national service seriously, I could not ask other people's sons to fight and die for the properties of the wealthy. So we worked out a personal savings scheme that allowed them to own an apartment painlessly through installments over 20 years. Today, 95% of Singaporean households are homeowners. Their value between 100,000 US to 400,000 US, between a 3-room to a 5-room apartment. Without this home ownership, we would have become like Tokyo, Seoul, or Hong Kong, where the voters in the city are disaffected when they have to pay a large proportion of their salaries in rents. In Singapore, they have voted for the return of the government in 9 successive general elections. They know who will keep the property values of their homes up. Policies must be pragmatic, not dogmatic. I learned early to ignore political correctness and to reject conventional wisdom when it did not accord with reality or my experience. For example, in the 1960s and 70s, it was politically correct to be anti-American and anti-multinationals. The theory expounded by Latin Americans like Raul Prevesh was that multinationals would reduce them to dependencia. We did not accept this. And we assiduously courted the MNCs. They had the capital, the technology, the know-how, and the markets. We decided it was the fastest way of learning on the job, working for them and with them. Now, I believe it will be equally mistaken to follow mindlessly the current politically correct and stridently advocated view that democracy is the precondition for economic development. I know it's a heresy in Harvard, Cambridge. The theory goes that without democracy, Russia could not develop a free market. Russia could not develop a free market with or without democracy. In the IT software business. I'm told it's because there's no ministry to regulate it. So I was interested to watch your new minister for IT being questioned. I can't remember whether it was CNBC or CNN or whatever. But he vehemently, and he was a very able debater, he vehemently asserted that his job was to help the IT industry, not to cripple it. That because IT required 24 hours power, he will ensure that there's enough power throughout India, that power and telephones will be spread all over India so that full advantage can be taken of IT. Well, if he can do that and get his other ministers to do that and change the way the bureaucracy works, India will achieve its potential. I have some reservation because I've had several disappointments. For example, when your last or former Prime Minister Narasimha Rao met my Prime Minister a few years ago and said, you have 7 million foreign tourists come visit you. Why not bring them to India? He said, yes, delighted. So we put up a plan, beautiful sketch plans of hotels that we will build, tour coaches that we will bring, but we needed an airline with landing rights. And he agreed that Singapore Airlines will form a joint venture with Tata and compete against Air India. And all these tourist destinations will be direct flights from Singapore. The Minister for Civil Aviation says, no, this is a family heirloom. Prime Minister was overruled. The plan is gathering dust for the last 5 years. Now a new plan is out to sell Air India up to 40%. So Singapore Airlines is in discussions with Tata to buy 40%. I am tempted, it's not my business, but I was thinking of dropping a little note to the chairman of Singapore Airlines to say, does 40% give us management control? We're putting in, let's say, 20% of that 40%, and will be run around by Air India management and Air India unions. Where does it go? So why not start a new airline? But then you'll be back to the same old story. So I don't know what's going to happen.